If you ever find a VHS tape with no label, don't play it. I know how that sounds, like some internet horror cliché you scroll past at 3 a.m., smirk at, then forget. But I'm not writing this to entertain you. I'm writing this because I don't have much time left, and if I can stop even one of you from doing what I did, maybe it'll mean something. The tape looked harmless. Just a blank, dusty cassette sitting in a cardboard box at a flea market, buried under stacks of old Disney movies and workout tapes. No markings, no title, just a strip of faded masking tape where a label should have been. Someone had tried to peel it off, but half of it clung on, like it didn't want to let go. When I brought it home, I wasn't expecting anything strange. I collect old tech, VHS decks, CRTs, floppy disks, nostalgia, you know? I like hearing that soft hum of static before a video starts. There's something comforting about analog noise in a world that's too clean, too digital. But when I slid that tape into the player, the static didn't sound right. It wasn't random. It was rhythmic like breathing. The first frame flickered on. Black screen, timestamp, no title card. Then an image, faint, grainy, almost drowned in snow. It was my street. Not a recording from years ago, my street, exactly as it looked that morning. That's when I should have stopped, but I didn't. I watched as the tape showed things that hadn't happened yet. A delivery truck passing, my neighbor taking out his trash, a cat crossing the road. Everything happened exactly as it appeared moments before I saw it in real life. At first, I thought it was a prank, some kind of pre-recorded surveillance trick, but then it kept going, past the ordinary. I saw myself, sitting on my couch, watching the TV, holding the remote. I blinked on screen, and the version of me blinked a second later. Like I was the recording, and the tape was real. You think you want to see what happens next. You don't. I'm uploading this now because I can feel it, the static. It's inside the walls, inside the light. The tape isn't just showing the future anymore. It's recording it. And if you're hearing this, it means it's already started recording you too. It started on a Saturday that felt too ordinary to matter. You know, the kind, gray sky, lukewarm coffee, nothing to look forward to except wasting time. I'd been walking downtown, killing the afternoon when I saw it. A small thrift store tucked between a boarded-up bookstore and a vape shop. The sign above the door read, "Second time around." I almost walked past, but the smell of old paper and dust hit me, and that kind of scent drags you backward in time. Inside, it was the usual chaos, cracked picture frames, porcelain dolls staring blankly, the faint buzz of a ceiling fan that hadn't been cleaned in years. I always liked places like that. There's something comforting about forgotten things. They don't ask questions. The electronics section was shoved into a corner, stacks of DVD players, tangled cords, and a milk crate overflowing with VHS tapes. I started sifting through them, mostly for nostalgia's sake. Jurassic Park, Home Alone, a few tapes labeled Christmas 1999, written in faded marker. Then I saw it. A black cassette, heavier than the rest, wrapped in cloudy plastic. No cover art, no title, just a strip of masking tape across the side. Someone had written something once, but time had smudged it into unreadable scratches. The plastic shell was warped slightly, as if it had been too close to heat. I held it up to the light. The tape reel inside looked fine, no mold, no unraveling. But there was this faint, burnt metal smell coming from it, not strong but sharp enough to sting the nose. I told myself it was just age. Everything in that store smelled weird. The old lady behind the counter noticed me holding it. She had these tiny glasses and the kind of face that made you think she'd been working there since the place opened. €5, she said before I even asked. Does it work? I asked. She hesitated. Depends what you mean by work. I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she didn't smile. She just rang it up and slipped it into a paper bag, careful not to touch the plastic more than she had to. I should have asked her what she meant, but I didn't. I took the tape home, tossed it on my desk, and forgot about it for most of the evening. The smell lingered, though faint, like static after lightning. Every time I passed by my desk, I could swear I heard something, not a sound exactly, more like the suggestion of one. the way silence hums when the TV's on mute. When midnight came, the apartment felt too quiet. My shelves full of old tech, VCRs, camcorders, cassettes, were lined up like museum exhibits. I told myself one tape couldn't hurt. I had boxes full of them. Still, when I picked that one up again, I noticed something I hadn't before. The strip of masking tape was loose at one edge. Beneath it, faintly etched into the black plastic, were numbers. A date. 09/14/2025. It wasn't there before. I know it was. I thought it was just old junk until I pressed play. The screen crackled to life with that familiar blue-tinted static, the kind that dances like snow before the picture forms. I'd almost forgotten how loud it could be. The TV hummed, the VCR clicked, and for a second I felt that same rush I used to get as a kid, waiting for a cartoon to start on a Saturday morning. Then the image came into focus. A local news segment, grainy, flickering, but clear enough to make out the anchor, some middle-aged guy in a cheap suit, sitting behind a wooden desk. The station logo in the corner was one I didn't recognize. WKRX Evening Update. The VHS distortion made it hard to tell if it was real or something recorded from an old broadcast. The man's tone was routine, bored, like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Good evening. Tonight's headlines," he began, his voice a little warped, as if playing from underwater. I watched, half smiling, thinking I'd stumbled on some lost local TV archive. There were reports about a community fair, a mayor's speech, the kind of filler stories small towns live on. Then came the weather segment. A woman appeared on screen, cheerful and grainy. "Expect heavy rain tonight and a possible power outage in the downtown area," she said, tapping a green screen map. "Stay safe out there." But outside my window, the sky was clear, not a cloud in sight. I remember muttering to myself, "Guess that forecast didn't age well," and leaning back. Then a flicker. The picture glitched. The weather girl froze mid-sentence, her smile bending unnaturally as the image tore horizontally, then reassembled. When it did, she was gone. The same newscaster sat at the desk again, but the lighting had changed. The background behind him was darker, the air almost smoky. He looked directly into the camera, not past it, not at a teleprompter, but straight through it. "In other news," he said slowly, his words dragging, "a car accident occurred at the intersection of Oak and Birch this evening. No survivors." I froze. That intersection was 5 minutes from my apartment. I checked my phone. Midnight. No news alerts, no messages. I almost laughed, shaking my head. Just coincidence, a script, old footage, nothing more. But then, outside, I heard the faint echo of sirens. At first, I thought I imagined it. But the sound grew louder, multiple sirens, overlapping. I muted the TV, went to the window, and there it was, flashing blue lights, reflecting off the wet pavement. It hadn't been raining 5 minutes ago. I stood there, staring, as the same street the anchor had mentioned filled with emergency vehicles. The forecasted storm rolled in, sheets of rain slapping against the glass. The smell of ozone cut through the air. My heart started to pound. I looked back at the screen, static again, soft and steady. I tried to eject the tape, but the VCR wouldn't respond. The buttons clicked uselessly beneath my fingers. Then the image came back. This time it wasn't the news. It was footage of my apartment building. Not a camera angle I recognized, high up, maybe from a drone or somewhere across the street. The timestamp in the corner read, "Live feed 00:17 a.m. It showed the outside of my window, the one I was standing beside. I remember backing away slowly, feeling my pulse in my throat. I told myself it was some kind of hoax, maybe an old recording from another building that looked like mine. But the movement on screen matched mine. The shadow in the window turned its head when I did. I unplugged the TV. The image stayed. At first, it played the weather. Then it predicted a storm that hadn't happened yet. And when the thunder rolled outside, I realized the tape wasn't predicting anymore. It was showing what was about to happen. To me. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the floorboards, every car horn outside, every flicker of light on the walls felt like it was syncing to that static rhythm I'd heard before, that mechanical breathing between the white noise. I tried to tell myself it was exhaustion, paranoia, maybe even guilt for wasting a night on an old tape. But the truth wouldn't leave me alone. So the next morning, I tested it. I set up my phone beside the TV, recording everything. I wanted proof, not for anyone else, but for myself. I played the tape again. Same opening, same flicker, the same anchor man in the same lifeless suit. But this time, the footage was different. He was talking about a fire at a local bakery, the one a few blocks away, where I bought coffee every morning. 2 employees injured, he said, eyes locked on the camera. Authorities are investigating possible electrical faults. I paused the tape, checked my phone, nothing online. No news, no posts, no reports. I even called the bakery's number. No answer. 2 hours later, I heard the sirens. I ran to the window, heart hammering. Smoke rose in the distance, just beyond the intersection. A real fire, real ambulances, just like the broadcast had shown. I could smell the burning sugar in the air. Coincidence, I told myself. It had to be coincidence. But the more I said it, the less I believed it. That afternoon, I played the tape again. The news was different. A bus crash on Highway 11, time-stamped 2 hours ahead of the current time. I sat there staring at the clock, waiting. Minutes felt like hours. My palms were slick with sweat. Then, right on time, the news app on my phone buzzed. Breaking, bus collision on Highway 11. The details matched exactly, even the plate number of the bus. I felt my stomach drop. My rational brain tried to stitch something together. Maybe someone had edited the footage remotely. But this was a VHS. It wasn't connected to anything. That night, I played the tape again. I couldn't help it. Curiosity mixed with dread until it became hunger. Every time I hit play, the tape changed, predicting events hours, sometimes minutes before they happened. Flood warnings, power outages, deaths. I stopped leaving the apartment. My curtains stayed drawn. My phone screen was filled with local alerts, and each one confirmed another prediction. I started cataloging them, writing timestamps, recording side-by-side comparisons between the footage and live updates. At first, I told myself it was for proof, for science, or sanity, or something that made sense. But deep down, I knew what I was doing. I was feeding it. The tape wanted me to keep watching. Every time I did, the static between segments got shorter, tighter, like it was learning how to focus. By the third night, the reports were getting closer, more personal. The body of a man was found in the alley behind, the newscaster began, before the screen distorted. Static hissed, and a faint whisper slid through the speakers, almost human. "Look outside," it said. I froze. For a moment, I thought it was feedback. Then, against every logical impulse I had left, I moved to the window. The alley below my building glowed under the streetlight, empty, silent. I stayed there for a full minute, waiting. Nothing happened. I turned back toward the TV, and that's when I saw it. On screen, the news footage had cut to live video. Same angle, same window. Only this time, there was someone lying in the alley. A man in dark clothes, motionless. I stumbled backward, knocking over the camera stand. The sound of my own voice shouting played back through the TV a second later, not echoing, repeating. That was the moment I realized it wasn't replaying reality. It was recording it early. I unplugged everything, ripped the cables from the wall, even pulled the tape halfway out of the VCR. The reel kept spinning, slow and steady, like it was breathing again. You'll think I'm lying, but I recorded everything. The phone footage, the timestamps, all of it. The problem is, every time I try to upload it, the files disappear. The folders rewrite themselves. And the videos that remain. They start with me sitting on the couch, holding the remote, pressing play. The next morning, I didn't touch the tape. I told myself I was done. I'd seen enough, proven enough. My phone was full of clips, screenshots, everything I needed to convince myself it wasn't my imagination. But the VCR didn't stop on its own. Around noon, I heard the click, that mechanical, unmistakable sound of a tape rewinding. The TV flickered even though I hadn't turned it on. For a long moment, the screen stayed black. Then the image began to form. It was my living room. Same couch, same crooked picture frame on the wall, same dent in the coffee table. The angle was high, like from a corner of the ceiling, but I didn't have any cameras there. At first, I thought maybe the tape had somehow recorded me during the previous nights, that it was showing old footage I'd forgotten about, but the details didn't fit. The clothes I was wearing in the video, I didn't own them yet, the haircut shorter than mine. I stared, mouth dry, as the version of me on screen moved around casually, doing completely normal things. Pouring coffee, checking my phone, flipping through a notebook. Everything was ordinary except it wasn't supposed to exist. It was like watching a security feed from a day that hadn't happened. Then something shifted. The on-screen version of me froze mid-motion, turning his head toward the camera. Not quickly, just aware. His expression was blank, but his eyes locked directly with mine, even through the static. I hit stop. The screen went black. I waited, breathing hard, trying to convince myself it was some visual feedback glitch. Maybe I'd recorded over something years ago and forgotten. Maybe I'd filmed myself without realizing it. Then the tape ejected itself. Halfway out, the reel still spinning, whispering that dry, mechanical hiss. Against every ounce of reason, I pushed it back in. The next time it started, the footage had changed. Same apartment, same angle, but the light outside was dim dusk. I was sitting on the couch again, staring at the TV. A knock echoed through the speakers, 3 sharp raps on the door. I glanced instinctively toward my real door. Silence. On screen, I stood up. My reflection followed a second behind, like a delayed broadcast. I reached the door in the video, opened it, and whatever was standing there I couldn't see. The frame glitched, lines tearing across the picture. But I could hear it. It wasn't a voice, exactly. More like a sound caught between a whisper and the crackle of static. Every syllable dragged like metal scraping across glass. I felt something cold seep through the room, as though the sound had mass. I tried to eject the tape again, but the button jammed under my thumb. The screen brightened, the camera view shifted. Now it was closer, lower, almost at eye level with me. The man on screen, me, was sitting back down, but his expression wasn't confused anymore. It was resigned. The version of me on screen stared forward as if he already knew what was coming. I pressed every button on the remote, on the VCR, even unplugged the power cable. Nothing worked. The static pulsed like a heartbeat. Then the camera zoomed in on my face. I could see the reflection of the TV in my eyes. And then I realized what made my skin crawl most. I wasn't blinking. Not once. My throat tightened. I turned off the breaker to the whole apartment. Darkness, silence. But the TV screen stayed on, faintly glowing. The me on screen leaned forward, his mouth moving slowly, deliberately. No sound, just lips forming words. I leaned closer to the real screen, trying to read them. 5 syllables. I played them back in my head, over and over, until I finally understood. You haven't done this yet. It knew things I hadn't done yet. And whatever it wanted me to do next, it was waiting for me to catch up. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, the version of me sitting in that room, eyes empty, lips moving like he was whispering to something just out of frame. By sunrise, I convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Hallucination from exhaustion, maybe. I brewed coffee, avoided looking at the TV, and even made a half-hearted attempt to throw the tape away. But when I opened the trash can the next morning, it wasn't there. It was back in the VCR. This time the screen didn't flicker or warm up slowly. It snapped to life, as if it had been waiting for me. The familiar static cleared, revealing another scene from my apartment. Same grainy VHS texture, same unnatural camera angle. Only now, the timestamp in the corner wasn't random. It showed a date. October 8, 2025, 11:43 p.m. At first, I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was some leftover date from old footage. But then it clicked. Today was October 7. My stomach dropped. On screen, the room looked just like it did now, lights off, half-empty coffee mug, same crumpled blanket on the couch. Except there was one difference. In the video, I was lying on the floor. Motionless. For a moment, I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the absurdity was unbearable. I always thought I'd die watching Netflix, I muttered. Not a damn VHS. But the laughter died in my throat when I saw the details. The position of my body wasn't random. My arm was outstretched toward the TV, fingers curled around something metallic. A reflection glinted briefly, a key, maybe, or a knife. The image glitched before I could be sure. I leaned closer to the screen, heart hammering. That's when I noticed movement in the background of the footage. Someone or something stepped into frame. At first, I thought it was another version of me, but the silhouette was taller, thinner, its proportions slightly wrong, like the tape was struggling to contain its shape. It crouched down next to the body, motionless for several seconds, then slowly turned toward the camera. The static thickened, like a storm cloud building inside the glass. The timestamp flickered, 11:43, 11:44, 11:45. Then it jumped back to 11:43 again. A loop. The tape was replaying the moment of death over and over, each time with more distortion, more sound bleeding through, faint breathing, low crackles, something that might have been whispering. I tried to stop it. My hands shook so badly I dropped the remote. The screen pulsed white, then silence. The video ended with a final frame burned into the CRT glow. A close-up of my face, eyes open, pupils blown wide. In the corner, the timestamp blinked once more. 11:43 p.m. Tomorrow. I sat there for what felt like hours, trying to process what I'd just seen. My brain bounced between disbelief and panic. It couldn't predict the future. Not again. Not like before. Still, I couldn't shake the sick feeling that everything, every prediction, every coincidence had been leading here. The date wasn't random. It was a countdown. I scribbled the time on a notepad, packing, trying to come up with some plan. I even called a few friends, pretending I was just feeling weird. But no one picked up. One texted back a shrug emoji. I considered leaving town, smashing the TV, burning the tape, but the thought hit me mid-step. What if that's exactly what it wanted? What if trying to escape is part of how it happens? I checked the clock again. 10:07 p.m. The same quiet hum filled the apartment. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. I picked up the remote, hands trembling. The play button stared back at me, waiting. "If you're going to kill me," I whispered, "at least let me see how." And before I could talk myself out of it, I pressed play. The screen flared to life one last time. A voice, low, distorted, spoke through the static. "You shouldn't have looked." The timestamp blinked. 11:43 p.m. Tomorrow. I didn't wait for nightfall. The moment the clock struck noon, I grabbed the VHS tape, wrapped it in an old t-shirt, and drove to the junkyard outside town. The whole ride, it sat on the passenger seat like a coiled animal, quiet but watching. Every bump in the road made the plastic creak. I'd convinced myself this was logical, that all I had to do was break it, melt it, erase whatever cursed thing lived inside. Easy, end of story. But when I pulled into the gravel lot and opened the trunk, I hesitated. The air felt heavier here, like static before a lightning strike. Still, I forced my hands to move. I took the tape out, placed it on the ground, and brought down the hammer. It didn't crack. Not even a scratch. The metal head of the hammer snapped. I tried again, slamming it against concrete, against rusted car doors. The casing bent, warped, but the real inside, the actual tape, refused to tear. It felt almost alive, like something pulsed beneath the plastic. Finally, I threw it into an oiled drum and doused it with lighter fluid. The fire roared up, orange and hungry. I stood there, waiting for that satisfying pop of melting plastic. Instead, I heard it, the faint hiss of static. From inside the flames. I leaned closer. The black ribbon inside wasn't burning. It was moving, twisting, rewinding itself, curling like muscle fiber regenerating. The edges of the drum began to vibrate, humming with a deep mechanical rhythm. That's when the screen of my phone lit up. An email notification. No subject line, no sender, just one word in the preview. Play. I dropped the phone. The fire suddenly snuffed out. Cold, silent. The tape lay at the bottom of the barrel, untouched. The casing gleamed as if it had just been cleaned. I drove home shaking, half in disbelief, half terrified of what I'd see when I got there. And sure enough, when I opened the apartment door, it was waiting. Not on the floor, not on the table. In the VCR. Already halfway rewound. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about the tape itself. The tape was just a medium, a vessel. Whatever intelligence was behind it, it didn't need the plastic. It lived in the signal. A tech horror thought crept into my mind. What if it could travel through devices? What if destroying the tape just forced it to move? That night, my laptop pinged with a new message. Another no-sender email, same format, but this time with an attachment, a video file. I hovered over it, heart pounding. The file name was a timestamp. 2025-10-0-81143, PMMP4. The same date, the same time. I deleted it immediately, or at least I thought I did, because seconds later the same file appeared again, multiplied. 1 became 2, 2 became 4. Within minutes, my desktop was filled with hundreds of identical copies, flooding the screen like digital rot. Then my speakers crackled. Static again. A voice whispered through the distortion, same tone as the tape. You can't destroy what's already recorded. The computer froze. The power cut out. Only the glow of the TV remained soft, blue, alive. That's when I noticed something I hadn't before. On the side of the VHS tape, near the edge of the reel, a tiny serial number was etched in the plastic. Not a manufacturer's mark, it was handwritten, shaky. 27. I couldn't breathe. If this was 27, that meant there were more. Maybe dozens, maybe hundreds. And as that thought rooted itself in my brain, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown message. This one had an image attached. A blurry still frame, a thrift store shelf. Dozens of unmarked VHS tapes lined up in rows. Each one numbered. Each one waiting. The message beneath it read, "You're not the first to find one." I didn't go to work the next day. I didn't eat, sleep, or even draw my curtains. Every screen in my apartment was unplugged except one, my laptop, the same one that had sent me those impossible videos. I knew I shouldn't go online again, but fear has a strange way of turning into curiosity when you're desperate. I needed answers. I needed to know if anyone else had seen one of these things. So I started searching. The first few hours were useless. Urban legends, Creepypasta threads, and Reddit skeptics calling it collective hysteria. But then, buried under archived pages and broken links, I found something that wasn't supposed to exist. A forum. REWNDNET. Its banner was a glitched-out VHS logo, looping endlessly. Membership was restricted, posts time-stamped years apart. Every thread title was almost the same. My tape showed my death. Tape 13 won't stop playing. They're recording us. I scrolled through until one caught my eye. 27, the one that reappears. My heart stopped. That was mine. The post was from a user named Ghost Track. It was dated 2 years ago. He described everything, the thrift store find, the weather forecast, the predictions that came true, even the timestamp of his own death. But the thread ended abruptly. No follow-up posts. His profile was still there, but his status read inactive. Dozens of replies followed from others claiming they'd found similar tapes. Some with different numbers, some unnumbered, some that predicted world events instead of personal ones. One user mentioned something I hadn't considered. It's not film. It's data encoded through the magnetic strip. Analog doesn't explain it. Another said, stop trying to burn it. That just triggers replication. And one final reply, from a now-deleted account, chilled me to the bone. Once it shows you the date, you're already part of the next tape. I tried messaging some of them, but none responded. When I clicked on their profiles, every single one showed the same thing, last active, the day after their date. That was when I realized the pattern. Each user had described their death as being filmed from the same camera angle. Same glitch patterns, same timestamp placement. Who was filming us? Or worse, what? I noticed a thread pinned at the top by the site's admin, titled simply Collection Status. It was a massive spreadsheet listing known tape numbers and owner outcomes. Over half were marked lost, missing, or confirmed. My number, 27, was marked pending. I wanted to post, to tell them I was still alive, that I was trying to fight it. But when I clicked the reply button, a pop-up message appeared that didn't match the forum's design. We already have your entry. My blood went cold. I slammed the laptop shut, but curiosity clawed at my brain. When I reopened it, the forum was gone. The page 404D like it had never existed. But a new file sat on my desktop. RewindNet log 27, txt. I opened it, just one line of text. 27 confirmed, final recording in progress. I could barely breathe. I turned the laptop toward the wall, like that would stop it from seeing me. That's when I decided to address whoever was still watching, you, the viewer, because I know this video will end up somewhere, somehow. If anyone watching this has ever come across a blank VHS with no label, please check your attic. Check your storage boxes. If you see a number etched into the plastic, don't play it. Don't even touch it. You think you're curious now, but that's how it starts. You press play, and the next thing you know, you're part of the footage. Somewhere out there, someone's cataloging us through thrift stores, yard sales, forgotten collections. The tapes find their way to people who can't resist the unknown. And maybe that's the point. Maybe curiosity is what kills us. Maybe it's what records us. So if you're watching this, and you think your story's safe, check the timestamp on your clock. Now look at the corner of your screen. See that faint flicker? That's not bad lighting. That's the start of your tape. October 8th. The day on the tape. I woke up before dawn, every nerve wired, every shadow a threat. The air in the apartment felt wrong, heavy, like the pressure before thunder. I didn't bother turning on the lights. What was the point? I already knew how the day would end. For hours, I just sat there, watching the clock. Every tick felt rehearsed, like time itself had seen the footage before. When it hit 11:30 p.m., I finally stood. My legs trembled as I walked into the living room. The TV was already on. The static wasn't noise anymore. It was rhythm pulsing, almost like breathing. The VHS player was humming softly, and the tape was inside. But it wasn't playing. It was recording. The red rec light blinked at me, slow and steady like a heartbeat. I couldn't move. The idea hit me all at once. The tape wasn't showing the future anymore, it was making it. Every second that passed, I could hear faint audio bleeding through the speakers, soft murmurs, like a crowd just out of reach. When I leaned closer, I realized they were whispering names. Some of them sounded familiar. Mine. And others I didn't recognize. The glow from the TV flickered across the room, catching on the window, the couch, my face. I realized with a shudder that I was standing in the exact same position as the body from the footage. Same angle, same lighting. 11:41 p.m. I wanted to run, but something deep inside whispered, "Stay still." Like if I moved, it would notice. Then the static cleared. I saw my own reflection on screen, but slightly delayed, a fraction of a second behind reality. A recording and a playback happening together. My every breath echoed half a second later. My every blink repeated in reverse. And then, I wasn't alone in the frame. Behind me, something shifted in the static. A figure, the same tall distortion from before, hovered just beyond the edge of focus. Its head tilted, slow and deliberate, toward the camera. I felt the air change, colder, sharper. The timestamp appeared in the corner. 11:43 p.m. The TV buzzed louder, as though it was straining to hold the image. The static swallowed my reflection until all that was left was the shape, tall, thin, wrong. And then the perspective changed. It wasn't showing me anymore. It was showing you. A dim room, the faint glow of a screen, your face flickering in the monitor light. The camera panned slowly closer, distorting as it focused. I could see the edges of your eyes, the way you're leaning forward, reading these words right now. That's the moment I understood. The tape doesn't stop, it just moves on. From me to you. From screen to screen. And it's recording now, every heartbeat, every breath, every tiny shift in your expression. You don't have to believe me. You'll find out soon enough when the timestamp appears in the corner of your screen. When it does, don't look away. Because that's when it starts to record the sound. And once it records your voice, it's already too late. If you've made it this far, you've already seen too much. I didn't upload this. At least I don't remember doing it. When I came to, the footage was already online, edited, titled, tagged like any other horror story. Except this isn't a story. It's the same file, the same signal, just converted. I thought destroying the tape would end it, but now it's digital. The thing doesn't need plastic or reels anymore. It's in the pixels, the sound waves, the compression artifacts. You think you're safe because you're watching from your phone, your laptop, your TV, but that's how it spreads. Every play, every like, every share is a copy. And each copy keeps recording. You've probably noticed by now the faint flicker that isn't buffering, the static hum that doesn't belong to my voice. That's not an editing glitch. That's the moment the signal recognized you. It's always watching for someone who won't look away. That's how it grows. I used to think I was the last one, but now I understand I was just the middle. Another recording in the chain, another timestamp waiting to be overwritten. When this video ends, you'll hear silence for a few seconds. Don't touch anything. Don't refresh. That's the part where it decides whether to keep watching you or move on. And if this video stops suddenly, if it cuts off mid-sentence, it's because it started recording you instead. So if you can still hear me, do me a favor. Leave a comment. Tell me what you saw. Tell me if your screen flickered if you heard the whisper. I don't know if I'm still here when you're reading this, or if I'm just another face trapped between frames. But I do know this. Every story needs an ending. And this one hasn't reached yours yet. Now, don't look away.